Good afternoon, everybody. It is February 16th. This is Two Queens and a Truck with Jenny-Jaymes Gunn, and George Michael and Christian Cano. So, hey, Christian, how are you doing?
Good. That was good music. I like that one.
Yeah, it was. It was kind of upbeat.
Yeah.
It's been an interesting week already. We
It
had
has.
Super Bowl and Valentine's in the same week, which is, I guess, because of the new extended NFL season, it's pushing it even further to February, which is weird that you had back-to-back a Super Bowl and a Valentine's in 2 days in a row. It seems kind of.
I think when is President's Day?
Next Monday.
Is it next? Okay. All right.
I think it's 20.
All right.
I believe it's February 20th. So
and and February's already a short month, so it's like soon as you know it. All right.
It's February 21st. So it was a week
okay.
Valentine's. So this
next
Monday is President's Day.
And
then the next Monday after that's the last day of the month. So
that's crazy.
We're done with February 2022. So anyway, this is Three Queers in a Truck. We have gone to a fast-paced format of 6 segments, and they're supposed to be about approximately 6 minutes apiece. We try to stick to that. We haven't always done a good job, but we are.
We did okay. Well, we'll stick to it.
Good.
Yeah.
So we are going to start with the first topic. My milkshake brings all the bigots to the yard, and we just had a Super Bowl show, and interesting that we had the conservative / Republican side of the ledger, and Lady Tucker Carlson's brain just melted down over Eminem taking a knee. So if you don't know, he's a middle-aged white rapper that was real big in the 90s and early 2000s. So those kind of coming in and out of popularity since then. Took a knee for Black Lives Matter, predominantly black male halftime show that was just rocking. Some people say it's the greatest of all time.
Oh, it was great.
But I find it interesting how, and I'll let you talk here.
Yeah.
How the Republicans are trying to frame January 6th as political discourse, and they're losing their minds. Like we basically burnt the American flag on stage.
Yeah.
And that isn't political discourse, So it's just like sacrilege. The communists and homosexuals are just taking over. It's just a very bizarre. They live in a very bizarre world. I don't recognize it, and I don't recognize where they come from. But it's just so like how overreactive Tucker Carlson and Lady Ted Cruz and all the just overperformative cracked up Republicans really are. What do you think?
Well, no, I agree, Jenny, and I'm curious. I know we talked about it on our show before about just people being angry. Why there's a certain part of our population that is just angry and they hate everything. And this is an example of I don't know. Part of me doesn't really care. I'm getting a little joy out of them being so angry, because as long as they're angry, I mean, I'm just curious. It's hard to tell because we're still kind of we are still in the pandemic. So we don't have the opportunity to talk to a lot of people face to face like we did before, go to meetings or do things or whatever. But I'm curious if surely everyone else is noticing, like if they've got this. Yeah, like the angry uncle, the bitter aunt, the surely we're noticing. I mean,
I noticed
younger people noticing.
Since January is such a less activity month. We got past the holiday season, but we're not to February or March when things start popping again. And I noticed because a lot of people probably went to family, gatherings during the holidays, either Thanksgiving or Christmas or and that sort of thing. And I noticed a lot of people, at least in our community, which is who I really associate as much on social media. Yeah. And I see them talking about, well, I think that's the last time I'm going to go to see family because there's just too many older conservatives in my family. I just can't be around anymore. They're just not fun to be around. And why travel during a pandemic, or why even bother spending money traveling and taking off time from work? to be around people that are just so flipping miserable.
Yes.
And I think you're seeing, especially the younger generations, where they're going, I don't want to go to that funeral. I don't want to go to that wedding. I don't want to go to that get together, because, Uncle Bill's just lost it. They're QAnon. I've seen several articles about people losing family members to QAnon and Proud Boys, and just these death cults that have taken a hold of a cross section of America, and they're done. They're just done.
It's like, the joke that we used to have growing up, and still today, that angry old guy, get off my grass. They have become the party, and not all, but the ones that we hear. They have become, and unfortunately, the ones that we hear are the party, because they're the ones that are being allowed to speak. If it was not the case, then they would say, you would think some Republicans would say, shut the heck up, but they're allowing them to speak on their behalf. They're allowing Ted Cruz to speak without saying, Ted Cruz, you're an idiot. I don't hear any Republicans here in where we live in Charlotte on social media or anywhere saying, shut the heck up, Ted Cruz. Why? I don't hear any of them.
But don't you think, Ted Cruz, no matter what, is one of the de facto leaders of the current party right now? I mean, he was came in second place in the primary in 2016. So he's kind of the voice of the party, or he's one of the dominant voices of the party. Mm-hmm. But he may be the best they got. Mm-hmm. like how far has the Republican Party fallen when Ted Cruz is your thoroughbred? It's like when you reach in your closet and you pull nothing out but ratty camo clothes, and that's the best you've got in your wardrobe. But he's made a lot of bad choices to get you there.
Jen, I don't know how much more long we have on this topic, but I have a question for you, because well, then let me ask it in the second one, because this is a question that I really want your honest, because I know I'll get it.
The second topic's not going to be too far off this one. So,
all right.
In fact, we could I will reboot, and I will.
Okay. All right.
I will cancel and restart, and it is the hackers versus the truckers / Christian crowdfunding. So a group called Give and Go, a Christian crowdfunding deal that funds different authoritarian Christian conservative things, got busted by hackers. Hackers went in and got a hold of their records and have published the ones that didn't do anonymous donations, but the ones that got some of them that I think were unpublished too.
Yes.
But they also outed one American billionaire and Thomas Seibel, and he contributed about $90,000. But they raised over a few weeks $8.7 million for the Canadian trucker flotilla or party or whatever. And a couple of things that have come out of this. So a couple of things in the Twitterscape that I read, and one of them was a really good thread by somebody I follow, and they said, you saw this with the Canadian police and the Ottawa police just hanging out. They were telling jokes. The police weren't rushing them out of there until the Prime Minister kind of stepped in and said, hey, we need to get them out. And but I find it funny how friendly the police were to these truckers. But had this been a Black Lives Matter deal in Canada or the United States, so our politics are not the same. I wonder if they would have given the same courtesy to Black or brown protests.
I don't think anybody who's ever lived a day as a human being believes people who have privilege know they've got privilege. People who are marginalized know they're marginalized. As someone who has gone in and out of both worlds, and you as well, I mean, you know what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah.
When I need to play the white part of being Latinx, I have played it. When I try to get more into my roots, I know more challenges arise. And I can see why there are people who, so I have been to white women marches here in Charlotte, North Carolina, where they have been rowdy, ripping signs up from other people, and the police did nothing. I mean, literally, and I'm like, holy camole. And I've been to other marches where you feel threatened because they're, around. So it is, and we've said a joke before. I've said a joke before as well. If you are a black or brown person, you want to have a rally, make sure you have white women in the front of the march.
Well, and there's a lot of truth to that. So,
Yes.
In fact, the author of this thread mentioned, the gay liberation movement, several other movements where the police have really cracked down on people recently, the BLM, George Floyd things in 2020, where the police have not been so kind, even to the suffragettes of, 1918 and 1919. They were pretty heavy-handed with those women, those white women, and it's kind of really why women's voting rights, or at least white women's voting rights, got passed was because of that heavy-handedness. They were like, "Oh, I think we screwed up too bad. We need to go and fix this. We'll go ahead and move." Their husbands will still tell them how to vote, so it'll be okay. But we got to make sure at least white women can vote. And it's kind of how, and a lot of white men don't really like to see white women locked up or manhandled by police, especially at that time.
Exactly.
And so, the optics aren't good, and which is ironic because all this funding came either from Canada or the United States, with a small part coming from different authoritarian countries like China, Russia, and all that.
They want to see.
The majority of it, over 7 million of the 8.7 million raised, came from Americans and Canadians. But I find it ironic there was a Canadian protest, and how almost 45% of it came from Americans, high wealth Americans, the most deal, and the fact that it was a Christian, nonpartisan thing. But the best part, Canada's frozen that $8.7 million.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that's when I saw they froze it, but also the TK Bank or TDK Bank or whatever. Anyway, one of the big banks in Canada froze the account. And also has frozen the accounts that they dispersed it to, because as soon as they got the money, the GoFundMe money at least, they tried to immediately disperse it so it couldn't be tracked, and they were able to catch it. And so they're hoping that all the banks in Canada, but the hacking thing, because this is a group, it's supposed to be a nonprofit hacking group that believes in exposing things they've done before. That they have the emails of all people who donated, even if they were anonymous. They're not going to give it, expose it. They're going to give it to journalists and researchers to look at it, which means some of it's going to be leaked. So I'm very interested. I'm very interested to see how much Rand Paul donated, how much Ted Cruz donated, because their whole platform, we talked about earlier, is to be angry, to be disruptive. It's just to be a pain in the butt. So,
and how many of those were nonprofit Christian groups that aren't supposed to be partisan?
Oh, good point. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah,
somebody could lose their charter. Anyway, the next one's a pretty positive one, and I don't really have a funny thing to say about it, but we do. I just titled it "We Got Broadband." So one of the things that came out of the infrastructure thing is the affordable connectivity program. And it hit a milestone. As of this month, they have over 10 million households involved subscribing to this affordable connectivity. As we move into the 21st century, one of the things we found out in the pandemic and homeschooling is there's a lot of households that don't even have the ability to get on the internet, don't have the resources to.
Sure.
And it's one of the big success stories. It's not getting.
So what is this, Jen? What is this? It's
one of the things with the Build Back Better was extending and nationalizing a internet program or connectivity program that pays for broadband for low-income households. And the idea is to connect seniors, kids, for the internet, for school, for access, all kinds of things.
Can people sign up for that?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Okay.
Affordable affordable connectivity program, and the fact that it hit 10 million households as of this month, according to actually our Vice President, Kamala Harris.
Oh, wonderful. Okay.
A great success story. It's probably not getting any play on the conservative side of the
I had not heard of it.
And it's one of those mundane details that isn't like a wow factor, like, getting rid of carbon emissions, something like that. It's not a flashy deal, but it is one of the many things that the Biden-Harris administration has worked on to guarantee low-income families access and equity, and having access to the internet will also help them study the critical race theory as well. Anyway,
Exactly.
I mean,
that was true.
Exciting news.
You're right. We talked about this once before last year about how I've always wondered if one of the reasons rural areas in the past have always been so, especially with the Trump people, have been so undereducated on what actually is in their best interest, is because they don't have as much information to access to information as maybe we do. You and I can very easily Google, is this true? They don't, maybe a lot of them don't have access to high-speed internet where they can look that up. So they just go by what someone tells them, and
people in rural areas or people involved with ag policy and other things.
Yeah.
One of the struggles with rural agricultural based businesses and rural educational systems is that lack of connectivity, connectivity that brings them into the 21st century. There's several North Carolina politicians like Jenna Wadsworth was one of her big platforms was getting rural connectivity, and the Build Back Better program was actually helping these rural communities and even urban areas that have pockets of low income areas that we quite frankly we saw this was really across racial lines. This is not going to help one specific group of people. It's really helping actually probably Republican counties more than Democrats.
Of course it does.
Because they tend to be the poorer counties. And so they often fall into that income bracket and don't have the connectivity and maybe don't even have the infrastructure in that county.
Well, doesn't it make sense that I could see why someone like Ted Cruz or someone like those type of individuals who are banging on this critical race theory, they don't want their voters to think critically, because if they think critically, they'd realize how idiots they are. I mean, really. I mean,
the ability to Google some of the BS that there's a lot of truth to that. A lot of education suppression, of defunding schools. They cry about defunding the police, which is not really the correct. That was a huge mistake on the Democrats' part. Using a deal like defunding police. It's really reforming the police is what we should have said.
Reform police. Yeah,
we really. If there was any defunding of any one thing, it's been the defunding of education. Yeah, and so much so that people are taking out huge loans for college. They're taking out, all kinds of, you're taking on all kinds of debt to just get access to internet. And the disproportionately favors urban areas versus rural areas. And so there's a lot of misnomers with that. And you're right. They've, your poorer states, your lower income states, which typically skew Republican, one of the tricks they do, and Texas is famous for this, they're always in the bottom fifth of funding schools. I know this topic came up in 2018 in a town hall with a Republican state senator that I got in a heated discussion with. And I pointed out, because he started talking about school funding at the very end after I'd already flamed him on the subject before. And I pointed out that the national average is 11,000 something per student, and Texas funds at about 7,700. And if you really want to help kids, you got to fully fund schools. That's a big one, The next one is, Alex, I will take white supremacy for $1,000, please. The communities that are tough on crime, and we've already kind of talked about this, but in a police angle, are police officers supposed to be for community order and safety, or are they supposed to be tough on crime?
Yeah.
And the big thing that they were talking about in Ottawa was community order and keeping it calm and safely dispersing the protesters.
Yeah.
But we've noticed again with communities of color, they don't care about community safety or calmness. It's pepper spray and rubber bullets and dogs and armored vehicles and tanks and a full-on body armor for the police that look like something from a Star Wars movie or something.
Yeah.
And it's very bizarre how they don't treat communities of color or rallies around communities of color like Black Lives Matter. Antifa is not really a racial thing, but a strong showing of communities of color. And it's just kind of bizarre that how different the narratives are depending on who the predominant protester is at that thing.
I was watching our show last week, I believe, a Coffee Medusa show when I was on the treadmill, and you said something that I was just reminded of on this issue. What you said is one of the reasons I think that Gen Xers are white supremacists, not just Gen Xers, but just people who are angry all the time. One of the reasons they're so angry is because the old days, and you said this, there used to be this language that they had with each other that everyone understood. And now that there are people who are exposing this language, those words like tough on crime, it's kind of the racist kind of things like you and I had talked about what Mitch McConnell had said. And you said, well, that's not what he said, but he back in the KKK meeting, which I thought was hilarious. There were words, and you and I talked about how in our families, there are people who say things like the good ones and all that, all these kind of things. But now that people are exposing this, it makes them angry because those days of being able to kind of code talk with each other, they're being exposed. And it makes them angry because those were, now they have to be careful. They have to be held accountable for what they're said. So I guess what I'm saying is that everyone knows when in white neighborhoods like the ones you and I both live in, we expect our police to be friendly, to be hidden. We don't want to see a roadblock. We don't want to see them driving around. We want them. We're almost offended if they're driving by us. So how dare you? But we expect them to be everywhere in Black and brown communities. It's this, and we all know that's the way it is. And now that we're highlighting the differences between those neighborhoods, and there are people who are willing to expose that, it makes people who live in our neighborhoods be held accountable for. We know that's the way it is. We all know it, and just admit it. And now they're having to admit it. So I do think that it's very interesting that we're seeing that, and that's maybe one of the reasons why people are so angry is because they're.
I saw an interesting Twitter discussion.
Sure.
Are police crime-stopping heroes?
Mm-hmm.
Or are they just the cleanup people that do the paperwork? Is the reality of police really just roving bureaucrats, write tickets, and go into crime scenes after they're done? And they're not like really the people we see on TV where it's NCIS.
They're not.
This is the magical time, and they come in with their Superman cape on and their Wonder Woman lasso and stop crime. More often than not, cops, police officers are really just mop up, because a lot of times if a crime wasn't committed, how many times have, especially women, have asked for protection orders and want to be stopped, harassed, and the police, there's nothing really they can do because a crime hasn't committed yet. So basically, they get the bureaucratic answer: we only show up after it's happened.
That's why it's so silly when I hear someone say, whenever we say stuff about we need police reform, we need accountability, and they come back with, well, you're going to miss them whenever crime. It's as if though they're, to your point, it's as if though they don't prevent crime. If they prevented crime, then we would have no crime, because we have more police than we've ever had it ever in America. And so I agree with you. They're not out there preventing crime. They're, as you said, mopping up. The people that prevent the crime are citizens. We're the ones that, call in when things are happening. And so you don't see them walking around, walking the beat, calling in, hey, I just want to let you know there's a suspicious person. No, they don't do that.
That's not their job.
Yeah. So anyway,
it's speaking of racism, we're going to take a real quick commercial break, and we'll be right back.
Yes. Hey, everyone. Thank you so much for watching us on Two Queers in a Truck. Don't forget, you can watch us anytime at your leisure on our video podcast platforms like Facebook and YouTube. But you can also listen to us, either this show or any of our past shows, on our audio podcast platforms like Apple, Amazon, Google, Spotify, and all of the other ones. So once again, thank you for watching Two Queers in a Truck. I hope you enjoy our show.
And we are back. And speaking of racism, like them if you got them. Gary Chambers, running for the U.S. Senate down in Louisiana, just recently did one of his commercials, and he took a Confederate flag and roasted it on his commercial. I mean, lit it up, melted it in this really cool image, and it was legit. He set it on fire, and he's really confronting racism and stuff like that. He is an African-American candidate. Very, very aggressive. I love it. I love we've talked about this on the show about how candidates in traditionally Republican states really need to be super aggressive. And he has been. In fact, his starting ad, the first ad that he ran when he kicked off his campaign, was him sitting in a chair outside smoking weed.
Yeah. Oh, that's the guy. Okay.
Oh, this is the same guy. Guy. But
Okay.
his brand new ad has him actually taking a lighter and lighting a Confederate flag on fire, which, boy, those Southerners really love those.
Yeah.
White Southerners love those flags. I find it interesting that not only did he burn a non-American flag, but a flag that is synonymous with hate.
Yep.
Which it is. And the fact that he did it and recorded it and made a phenomenal, like, hair on your arm stand up type chilling. I love it. I love the intensity. I love the shade. I love him going at.
Who's he running? What's he doing again?
He's running the U.S. Senate in Louisiana. And his name is Gary Chambers. Okay. And if you look him up on, he's got a big Twitter page and a big Twitter following. And I would love, if people watching this show support him, but also too, the fact that he's just he's coming right at them. He is. Yep. He is. You talk about he is not pulling any punches. It's
what we've talked about, right?
Exactly what we've talked about.
Yes.
But he's made it make sense in such a way because in the first one where he's smoking weed, he's talking about mass incarceration and how this affects Black and brown communities and like our previous topic, that we've got the largest prison population we've ever had in American deal as a percentage, and the amount of people, almost 3 million people in some type of jail or prison right now. And crime's worse than it's ever been. Violent crime is higher than it's ever been since we had the war on crime with Nixon on. And these Republicans, primarily and conservatives, have pushed this whole idea that there's crime prevention. And again, the same deal that the police are going to come out there with capes on and their lightsabers and it just be the hero. When quite frankly, none of that's happened. We have bigger budgets for like the city of Charlotte, where we both live. Is 40% of our city budget goes to the law enforcement, to the city police. 40%. Just think if we cut that in half and took 20% of that and put that into parks, schools, and educational systems, maybe even set up a scholarship fund for kids to go to the local community colleges and to UNCC, one of our UNC chapter, division, and just put it into anything but law enforcement, because law enforcement does not equate to crime prevention.
Yeah.
You know what? And Gary Chambers said this. You know what prevents crime? Fighting poverty.
Yeah.
That's as simple as it is.
Those Jenny, I like that. I like those talking. Not that they're just talking points, because I know you're more than talking points, but I like that. It's an angle that I've never heard, kind of that approached, because we've always we've always let like the Republican Party dictate certain things, like fiscal conservatism,
right?
Like our fiscal responsibility, or family values, or when in fact, you can have family values, and I people who aren't people of faith are better family people than I know that people who go to church.
I've got a smattering of people that are friends and associates that I hang out with atheists and I don't care what somebody's faith is or lack thereof or whatever, but truthfully, more often than not, the people that have been the most consistent and most trustworthy in my life are atheists. I've almost never been able to depend on a Christian. I mean, seriously, whether it was emotional support, whether it was whatever it was, 9 times out of 10, the only thing I'll hear is, "I'll pray for you." And
I'm like, exactly.
That didn't really happen. There was no solution to that.
I don't think that experience that you're talking about is that far off of what your average American believes too. But I do think with certain people, for whatever reason, they feel more comfortable if they join a group of people, because they feel like, for whatever reason. And I don't understand that. I think, anyway, I'm bougie, so I don't know why
Anyway, you said that, I didn't.
Yeah, that's right.
The last topic is, who wants to see a no-knock warrant served on the Trumps in Mar-a-Lago? I mean, between the flush paperwork, deleted emails, now the Trump, accountants, firing them. Yeah. The list goes on, all the dubious business. January 6th. Yeah. Any of the agencies that are currently investigating, Melania's new fake charity where she solicited donations. The charity doesn't even exist. It doesn't even exist. It's a fake charity that just broke just a couple weeks ago and is catching steam. I mean, the stealing from the cancer charity in New York. I mean, there were so many crimes against humanity and against the United States. But somebody said the other day on Twitter, and I can't remember who it was, so I can't give them the credit for this line, but who wants to see a no-knock warrant being served at Mar-a-Lago? And I'm just like, hey, of all the people who deserve a no-knock, it's the Trump crime family.
I saw some polling that was released this weekend. I don't know when it was, maybe it's Friday, that it said that the only subgroup that actually still believes that Trump did not lose the election by a majority is uneducated white women, or non-college educated white women. That's the last group. Now even non-college educated white men, more than 50% are saying that he lost, and it's still high, but it's not over 50% like it was before. Educated white people have already long since dropped off. Now they don't. But the last group that's still above 50% is non-college educated white women, and I just thought that was very interesting. Those are the last. They're the last ones hanging on. I don't know where we go with that one, but I just thought that was hilarious.
Interesting, because I follow the Daily Show on Twitter and Instagram. and they do. I can't remember that gentleman's name. That is basically Trevor Noah's field reporter.
Yeah.
And he goes to a lot of Trump gatherings, QAnon gatherings, and that sort of thing. And more often than not, it is very rural, very River Tucky like.
Yeah.
White women spout off inane comments like, well, we don't really need a woman president because, you know, of their emotional cycles and just really misogynist things, just off the wild eggs, or a lot of QAnon white women where they're just off these theories that he's really the puppet, Biden's just a puppet president.
Yeah.
Pretty soon Trump's gonna, and several times this week, actually, I've seen where the QAnon are posting more and more, we're winning. You can see we're winning. We're really winning. And I'm going, winning at what? Looking stupid?
Yeah.
I mean, other than that, I mean, the only headway I've seen is, winning in the dumb quotes rates and just looking just dumber than ever. Like it just.
So that, but you know what, Jenny, this is kind of what we were talking about, or we have been talking about over the last couple of years or whatever, is from a marketing standpoint, and you're a marketing person, doesn't it make sense if you want to attract future people, like young people, to your movement? You want to attract people that look at something and go, that's what I aspire to be. If I become like in the 80s, we talked about this in an early show. In the 80s, we were taught, or when I was in college, you want to be a Democrat, a Reagan Democrat, a successful small business Reagan Democrat who's Democrat, but you vote for fiscal conservative issues and so forth. And so as a young person who wants to be you're influenced, you go, well, that's the group I want to belong, because they're the ones that are going to become the future CEOs and the future whatever.
There's a ton of truth to that, because in the late 80s, the movie Wall Street came out.
Yes, exactly. It was like,
they gave that famous,
greed is good.
Greed is good.
Exactly.
It was just made it a very romantic ideal. You would say Ponzi schemers and thieves.
Yeah, of course.
But kind of in a Robin Hood, almost like a Robin Hood type story. It kind of makes CEOs and entrepreneurs come off as these.
That's I want to be like that.
And worshiping money and giving that prosperity type gospel. And that really came about in our generation.
Yeah. And so now what they're saying is, we want you to be like the non-college educated white woman.
MTG, Bobber.
That's my point. Who's going to say, I want my kid to be just like, it's just how do you think about the logic?
The heroes of the conservative movement?
Yeah.
For lack of her. Let's see. Madison Cawthorn, known liar.
Yes.
Ted Cruz, babbling idiot. Leaves the state whenever the ice storm hits or a tragedy hits.
Yeah.
Death DeSantis will sell out anybody. Doesn't care how many Republicans die in his state. And when you look at the inane craziness that comes from the Republican Party right now, it just the overall MTG, Bobbert. I have very few examples, or even if you move out of the, let's move out of the political arena and go into the more famous conservatives right now, which would be your Joe Rogans, your who else? Elon Musk. Those people, they sound so out of touch and so out of sync and so disconnected with the world, and they're so full of narcissism or narcotics. It's just unreal how disconnected they are from anybody that has an IQ above room temperature.
So here's the deal, and I know we've run out on this issue, but what I was going to say is that I can see realistically maybe someone who's a little delusional going, I'd like to be like Elon Musk, and listening to what he has to say. Okay. But of the 700 and how many billionaires are there? Of the 700 billionaires, you just have to look at the math. Of the 700 and something, maybe 10% of them are like him. The other ones are not crazy like that. So you have to go, why would you bank on the least account? My point is, if it, and I keep saying this before, if I thought that was the future, I'd be a Republican in a heartbeat. I would. If I actually thought that was the future, I don't see any future in that thinking. I don't. If I thought tomorrow that I would make more money or I would do something if I became a Republican or whatever, I don't see any benefit in today in 22. I don't. Other than, why would you be a log cabin Republican? I mean, I've always wondered why they would be one anyway, but why would you even be one today? I mean, I don't get it.
It's just so people understand what a log cabin Republican is.
Yeah.
Thinks they are queer. That's a gay Republican. So they have a whole subgroup called the log cabin Republicans. But here's even a most important point.
Yeah.
Typically, most of the big infrastructure, societal or socialism programs, whatever you want to call it, the majority of the billionaires support universal health care.
Yeah.
Most of them support a universal basic income. Almost 90% of those billionaires support a UBI for a lot of reasons. And because they're kind of patchwork quilting a UBI anyway, because in a lot of ways, like Walmart, with a job application, they also give you a benefits application because they pay so low. They know you're going to qualify for food stamps.
Exactly. Yeah.
Unless you're going straight into management. And so basically Walmart, we subsidize, Walmart uses our socialism, our programs to help subsidize their corporation. Yeah. And almost all of our Fortune 500 companies took advantage of the not only the money that we handed out during the pandemic, because big corporations love socialism. Yeah. There's just this mental block that capitalism, especially billionaires like Elon Musk, don't want anything to do with socialism. No, they want something to do with socialism. They love government money. Amazon,
SpaceX is
all get big government contracts and big government. They just don't like it for individuals. And conservatives don't want me or you to get that money. They want us to have that strong individualism, that rugged individualism. Yeah. And we just need to work harder, like Elon Musk. Yeah. But for some reason, corporations don't have to work their way out of a hole. Like corporations are just exempt from hard work. Yeah. I think it's one of the
makes no sense.
So a billionaire or a high wealth individual, Dan Price, who's one of my favorite Twitter and Instagram things, he posted something I thought was very interesting. Hey everybody, join us next week on Two Queers in a Truck. That'll be the last show of the month. Who knows what we're going to come up with to talk about. And enjoy our, we now have got an audio version on major podcast networks, iHeartRadio, Apple, Amazon, Spotify, and so on and so forth. Thanks for watching. See y'all next week. Bye. A day or two ago, and it's actually not up on my story anymore, but but it really showed the disconnect between poverty and high wealth individuals. And if I can't, I'll use it for next week. Oh, here it is. CEO pay in the United States went up 16% to an average of $14.2 million. CFO pay went up 16% as well to an average of $4.9 million. Those are the two top positions of most major corporations. Yep. Worker pay went down when adjusted for inflation. And in his tagline, Dan Price said, "It's funny how people in charge of the money ensure their raises are comfortably above the inflation they helped create." Yeah. Yeah. And our inflation situation is completely manufactured by the largest corporations in the United States. Yeah. And they're using it to, like, it went up only 7%,
Yeah.
But most of these companies have raised their fees anywhere from 25 to 40%.
And say, oh, it's inflation.
With inflation.
Yeah.
And at the same time, their top brass also huge double-digit payments. And on that note, I mean, you know, if we don't do something about it, Rome will learn, and so will the U.S. That's such a cheerful ending, you know. But anyway,
exactly.
Thanks for tuning in on this edition of Two Queers in a Truck, and we appreciate you always watching. And that's about it. We will sign off unless you have something else.
Nope, that's it. Good show. We'll see you next week, Jenny.
Maybe we'll get some freedom.
Bye.
Bye.
Any music?
Great show, everybody. Thanks for watching Two Queers in a Truck. And next week we'll have some more wacky, cracky type stuff. Maybe we'll see some more Super Bowl fallout. Who knows? Be safe out there. Watch out for the COVID idiots.
Bye, y'all.